Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Here we are, class number 23 with Bidāyat al-ʿābid wa kifāyat al-zāhid by the great Shaykh al-Allāma Abdurrahman al-Ba'li rahimallahu ta'ala. Wrapping up with the pillars and obligations of Hajj, jumping right into faslun arkān al-Hajj arba'atun ihramun ووقوف وطواف وسعي وواجباته سبعة الإحرام من الميقات ووقوف من وقف نهارا إلى الغروب والمبيت بمزدلفة إلى بعد نصف الليل إن وافاها قبله والمبيت بمنى ليالي التشريق والرمي مرتبا والحلق أو التقصير وَالطَّوَافُ الْوَدَاعِ. There you go. Hajj has 4 pillars. 4. Ihram, we've discussed. Wuqūf, the standing, we've discussed. Tawaf, we've discussed in detail. And sa'i. Those are the 4 pillars. Its obligations are 7. 7 in number. Entering ihram from the miqat. Standing until sunset for those who stand during the day. Spending the night in Muzdalifah until after midnight for those who arrive before it, spending the nights of Tashriq in Mina, stoning in sequence, shaving or trimming, and performing the farewell tawaf. Hajj has 4 pillars, he says. Ihram, wuqūf, tawaf, and sa'i. Okay, so we remember, just quickly, because we have discussed all of these, ihram means the intention to enter into the specific type of Hajj that you're going to do. Not the clothing necessarily, but the actual intention behind it. Wuqūf refers to specifically the standing at Arafah. Wal-Hajju Arafah, as the Prophet said, that Hajj is entirely Arafah, if you will. Tawaf, of course, we're talking about Tawaf as Ziyarah, and Sa'i, of course, that happens between Safa and Marwa. Very good. Obligations are 7, as he mentions, entering ihram from the miqat, meaning whoever passes the miqat enter ihram from that point, as we've discussed in detail. Standing until sunset for those who stand during the day. This applies only to the one who begins wuqūf by day. Such a person must remain until nightfall. As opposed to somebody that may come late, and they just are there, like at the latter moments of the opportunity, then they just can be there after in the night, as long as they've made it before the deadline ends. Then they will have met and fulfilled this obligation. Spending the night in Muzdalifah until after midnight for those who arrive before it. That is, whoever reaches Muzdalifah before midnight. They must remain until after half the night has passed. And we discussed the details and the exceptions for various different categories of people when they can leave. Then spending the nights of Tashriq in Mina. Those included the 11th, 12th, and 13th of Uḍḥiyah. And that is the 3 days. And this, of course, has the exception of those that might be leaving early, making haste to get out. Stoning in sequence, again, we've covered this in some detail. The jamarat is what we're referring to. They must be stoned in the prescribed order. And then shaving or trimming, either will suffice the fulfillment of this particular obligation. And then lastly, performing the farewell tawaf, as we've discussed. When you want to leave, anybody there, they have to leave. They want to leave, they have to perform the farewell tawaf. Shaykh Taqiyuddin, this is the great Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he clarifies, this was his conclusion, Tawaf al-Wada' is not intrinsically part of Hajj itself, but it's obligatory upon anyone intending to depart from Mecca. Anything beyond that, what we've just mentioned here, the pillars and the obligations, it only leaves one category left, which is recommendation. So, if you're ever wondering what's what, all you had to remember is 4 pillars, 7 obligations. Everything after that is considered min sunan al-Hajj, the recommended acts. The next part, he says, وَأَرْكَانُ الْعُمْرَةِ ثَلَاثَةٌ إِحْرَامٌ وَطَوَافٌ وَسَعْيٌ وَوَاجِبَاتُهَا شَيْئَانِ الْإِحْرَامُ مِنَ الْمِيقَاتِ وَالْحَلْقُ أَوْ التَّقْصِيرُ. Umrah, much lighter and less, obviously, in terms of its pillars and obligations. He says Umrah has 3 pillars, Ihram, Tawaf, and Sa'i. Its obligations are 2. Entering Ihram from the miqat. and shaving or trimming. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. وَالْمَسْنُونُ كَالْمَبِيتِ بِمِنَى لَيْلَةَ عَرَفَةَ وَطَوَافُ الْقُدُومِ وَالرَّمْلُ وَالِاتِّبَاعُ وَنَحْوُ ذَلِكَ فَمَنْ تَرَكَ رُكْنًا. So those are basically the sunan there he mentions here. He says the recommended acts include spending the night in Mina on the night of Arafah, the arrival tawaf, the short stride jogging, as we described in the first several units around the tawaf, if you will, tucking the upper wrap beneath the right arm, and similar practices. These are all sunan. Okay? فَمَنْ تَرَكَ رُكْنًا لَمْ يَتِمَّ حَجُّهُ إِلَّا بِهِ وَمَنْ تَرَكَ وَاجِبًا فَعَلَيْهِ دَمٌ وَحَجُّهُ الصَّحِيحُ وَمَنْ تَرَكَ مَسْنُونًا فَلَا شَيْءَ عَلَيْهِ وَمَنْ فَاتَهُ الْوُقُوفُ بِعَرَفَةَ فَاتَهُ الْحَجُّ وَتَحَلَّلَ بِعُمْرَةٍ وَلَا تُجْزِئُ عَنْ عُمْرَةِ الْإِسْلَامِ وَهَدْيٌ إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ اشْتَرَطَ وَقَضَى مِنَ الْعَامِ الْقَابِلِ. Okay, so now we deal with what happens when you leave off or abandon any one of these categories. So whoever abandons a pillar, their Hajj is not completed except by performing it. Has to be done. Whoever abandons an obligation, a blood sacrifice is required of them, and their Hajj is valid. Whoever leaves a recommended act is not required to do anything. Whoever misses the wuqūf at Arafah has missed the Hajj and disengages by performing Umrah, which does not fulfill the obligatory Umrah of Islam. They must slaughter if they had not stipulated a condition, and they must make it up the following year. Okay? Sunan, as he mentions here, omitting them carries no consequence. The various different things. Everything besides those pillars and obligations, if you omit them for whatever reason, there's no penalty. If you abandon a pillar, however, a pillar cannot be compensated for. It is what it is. It's an absolute essential. The rite remains incomplete until it's fulfilled. Whoever abandons obligation, we had 7 obligations we highlighted, there's a blood sacrifice that's required of them, and their Hajj will be valid. So if you omit an obligation of Hajj or Umrah, even forgetfully, or due to an excuse, you have to offer a blood sacrifice. There's them, basically. And the rite itself remains valid. If you're unable to offer the sacrifice, the substitute is fasting 10 days, 3 during the pilgrimage and 7 upon returning. Whoever abandons the recommended act, as he says, has nothing to do. Whoever misses the standing at Arafah has missed the Hajj. There is a decisive cutoff, obviously. Missing the wuqūf, even if you have an excuse, nullifies the Hajj for the year. And you are to disengage. Because you're going to be in ihram at that point, and you're running late, you miss it, you're in ihram. How do you come out of ihram? You disengage by performing Umrah, which does not suffice for the obligatory Umrah of Islam. So essentially, if you haven't made Umrah yet, that still doesn't count for that case. The ihram converts to an Umrah for the purpose of release only. Right? So that Umrah is just so you can disengage, come out of ihram. They must offer a sacrifice if they did not stipulate a condition. So if you were late and you missed, and you didn't offer this conditional phrase, which we discussed in some detail at the very beginning, when you made your ihram and when you said, oh Allah, if I get stopped along the way or something of that nature, then my disengagement is wherever it occurs. That's why it's important to make that stipulation. So if something does come up and you get stuck, you get stopped, you get prevented from moving forward, you're not penalized when you come out. And they must make up the Hajj the following year. The sacrifice is a sheep or 1/7 of a camel or a cow. And again, if unable, they fast 10 days like the ruling of tamattu'. Okay? وَمَنْ مُنِعَ الْبَيْتِ وَلَوْ بَعْدَ الْوُقُوفِ أَوْ فِي أُمْرَةٍ ذَبَحَ حَدْيًا بِنِيَّةِ التَّحَلُّلِ وُجُوبًا فَإِنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ صَامَ 10 أيام بِالنِّيَّةِ وَحَلَّ وَلَا إِطْعَامَ فِيهِ وَمَنْ صُدَّ عَنْ عَرَفَةَ فِي حَجٍّ تَحَلَّلَ بِأُمْرَةٍ وَلَا دَمَ عَلَيْهِ. Whoever is prevented from reaching the Kaaba, whether after the wuqūf or during Umrah, is obligated to slaughter a sacrificial animal with the intention of disengagement. If they do not find one, they must fast 10 days with the intention, and they disengage without any obligation of feeding. Whoever is prevented from Arafah during Hajj disengages by performing Umrah and is not required to offer a blood sacrifice. So we kind of hinted at some of this already. So when he says whoever is prevented from reaching the Kaaba, whether after the wuqūf or during Umrah, is obliged to slaughter a sacrificial animal with the intention of disengagement. This also includes those that are being blocked, that are being stopped from entering the haram itself, or prevented along the route, even before they get there, whether that's before they're standing at Arafah. This applies equally to Hajj and Umrah as well. If they didn't find one, they must fast 10 days, meaning they don't have the sacrificial animal, can't afford it, it's not available. They fast 10 days with that intention, and they disengage without any obligation of feeding. So essentially, fasting in this case would replace the sacrificial animal entirely. No feeding of the poor is prescribed in this case. And whoever is prevented from Arafah during Hajj, as I mentioned, disengages by performing Umrah, is not required to offer a blood sacrifice. Okay? So that stipulation, again, is important. My place of release is wherever I am prevented, is essentially what that is. And so this allows you, this stipulation, to disengage freely in all cases of missing the rite, being prevented, illness, or any circumstance, without having to sacrifice, without having to fast, and without having to make up anything. There's no requirement so long as you have stipulated this condition. If the stipulation was conditional, such as if I become ill, then release occurs automatically when the condition arises. Right, once it applies, you're out. You're out. And that concludes the section on Hajj, Umrah, and the various rites, rituals. The next section has to do with this. Of course, that's why it's here. It has to do with al-Hajj, ما يهدى للحرم من نعم وغيره لأنه يهدى إلى الله تعالى والأضحية ما يذبح من إبل وبقر وغنم أهلية أيام النحر بسبب العيد تقربا إلى الله تعالى وهي سنة مؤكدة وتجب بالنظر. Right, this section is on al-Hady, al-Uḍḥiyah, as well as al-Aqiqah. They lump them all together. So the Hady here, al-Hadyu ma yuhda lil haram, he says, is what is offered to the sanctuary from livestock and the like. For it is offered to Allah. The Uḍḥiyah is a camel, a cow, or domesticated sheep slaughtered during the days of Nahar on account of Eid as devotional to Allah, and it is an emphasized recommended act, and it becomes obligatory by a vow when you make another. The Hady is offered, he says, to the sanctuary. And this is a distinction or a quality here. The sacrificial animal designated for the haram, whether it's obligatory, whether it's voluntary, or whether it's obligatory, and it's a defining feature here because it's sent to the sacred precinct and distributed to the poor. Specific to that place, becomes obligatory by a vow, after which it must be delivered accordingly. So a person could vow to make a Hady or something of that nature, and they would have to distribute accordingly. Uḍḥiyah is a camel, cow, or a domestic sheep, highlighting for us what types of animals can be used. So we're not taking chickens, we're not taking things like that. Okay? So the Eid sacrifice performed on the day of Nahar and the days that follow, it's distinct from the Hady in both cases, Eid rather than pilgrimage obligation, and of course the context that we're in. It's an emphasized sunnah or recommended act, and it becomes obligatory by a vow, as he says. So the Uḍḥiyah is a confirmed sunnah for one who's able to do so, such that leaving it without excuse is considered disliked. And like the Hady, it becomes legally obligatory when bound by a vow as well. وَالْأَفْضَلُ إِبِلٌ فَبَقَرٌ فَغَنَمٌ وَلَا تُجْزِئُ مِنْ غَيْرِهِنَّ وَتُجْزِئُ شَاةٌ عَنْ وَاحِدٍ وَأَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ وَعِيَالِهِ وَبَدَنَةٌ أَوْ بَقَرَةٌ عَنْ سَبْعَةٍ وَيُعْتَبَرُ ذَبْحُهَا عَنْهُمْ وَشَاةٌ أَفْضَلُ مِنْ سُبْعِ بَدَنَةٍ أَوْ بَقَرَةٍ وَسُبْعُ شِيَاهٍ أَفْضَلُ مِنْ إِحْدَاهُمَا وَسَبْعُ شِيَاهٍ أَفْضَلُ مِنْ إحداهما. The most virtuous is a camel, then a cow, and then a sheep. And nothing else suffices, meaning you can't use another animal here. One sheep suffices for a person and their household and dependents. Right? This is the Uḍḥiyah, this is the qurbani. One sheep suffices a person and their household and dependents. So you don't have to have one animal per person in your home. You could do that, there's no doubt about it, but one animal is enough. A camel or cow suffices for 7, and its slaughter counts on their behalf. One sheep is better than 1/7 of a camel or cow, and 7 sheep are better than either of them. 7 sheep are better than dividing. 1 sheep is better than 1/7, and 7 sheep are better than either of them, camel or the cow, because we're talking about kathratud dam, right? The multiplicity and a high number of slaughters that are going to happen. And we know that it's not like we're wasting the thing. It's not like you're slaughtering and then just piling up a bunch of bodies. Sometimes that comes to mind like, what do you mean you got to slaughter animals? Like, what are you guys doing? It's just slaughtering animals. Like, yeah, but we're giving the meat away. People are being fed. People are being fed, and there's a method to how that food is distributed. And believe it or not, the society is benefiting in a tremendous way, especially those that are recipients. Not only your family members, but those that are actually in need. So this could be a major windfall, if we can describe it in such a way, for them, waiting around for Eid, Uḍḥiyah. It's a lot of meat. I think they have some distribution processes. Yeah. Yeah. Get that circulated where it needs to go. And then today you can, of course, you can freeze stuff. People are freezing things now. Yeah. Yes, yes. Same thing. Sheep or goat are the same thing. Good clarification. ولا يجزئ إلا جذع ضعن أو ثني غيره فثني إبل ما له 5 سنين والثني بقر ما له 2 ولا تجزئ هزيلة وبينة عور أو عرج ولا ذاهبة ثنايا أو أكثر أذنها أو قرنها وسن نحر إبل قائمة. Here we go. وسن نحر إبل قائمة معقولة يدها اليسرى بأن يطعنها في الوهدة بين العنق والصدر وذبح بقر وغنم على جنبها الأيسر موجهة إلى القبلة ويسمى وجوبا حين يحرك يده بالفعل ويكبر ويقول اللهم هذا منك ولك. So here we're talking about the animals that we've defined, the sheep, the cow, the camel, and their ages and the basic condition of that animal. He says nothing suffices except a jadr of sheep or a thani of older or of other than it. So a thani camel is 5 years old and a thani camel is 2 years old. It does not suffice if it is emaciated, clearly defective in its eye or lame, or one whose incisors are gone, or one missing most of its ear or horn. It's recommended that a camel be slaughtered standing with its left foreleg bound by thrusting into the hollow between its neck and its chest. Cows and sheep are slaughtered on their left side, facing the Qibla. It's obligatory to mention Allah's name when the hand begins the act of slaughter and to pronounce the takbir saying, "O Allah, this is from you and for you." Okay? Giving us some basic ideas. So the sheep are the exception here. A 6-month jadr suffices. All other animals must reach the thani age. 1 year for goats, 2 for cattle, and 5 for camels. That's the minimum age required to slaughter the animal. The sacrifice is invalid if the animal is emaciated, if it's clearly blind in one eye, obviously lame, missing its incisors or missing the majority of its ear or its horns. This is a defective animal, indicating that it is subpar. It's not a substantial offering, basically, due to the deficiency. And that prevents the offering from fulfilling its purpose. You want to offer a good, you want to offer something good. You don't take your lame stuff to give away and slaughter and sacrifice, but you give away your good stuff. It's recommended that a camel be slaughtered standing with its left foreleg bound by thrusting into the hollow between the neck and the chest. All right, it has the, I guess we call the sternum or something, and there's an open kind of soft point in between that, like we have right here. And then it's punctured with like a spear type device, as opposed to like slicing their neck. It's punctured here. That's what's recommended for the camel. Very, very tricky moment due to the size and strength of camels. They're not like docile either. It's not docile like a cow or like a sheep. The camel's got a personality. Yeah. If you don't bind that leg, it'll likely go wild on you. It'll start kicking around. All kind of things. It's getting a little gnarly in there. Okay, so that's what they're talking about, binding the leg. And that's what the iqal was for typically. That's what that, you know, that the iqal that they have around the ring that they have around the head that they wear with the scarf on, the shamar there and the iqal. Yeah, that's kind of like, you know, like that's the cultural bit. That's what wraps around that's what ties around the knee of the camel. Just tie it around, and then you, like, it's like your bike lock. What do I do with this thing? Yeah. Yeah. Because you could tie a camel's leg like that, and then he can't walk. So if you want to like keep him from moving, you could bind the leg, and the camel will just sit there and wait. So he can't move. Yeah, it's like how you keep him from running off. So you bind the leg there, and then you got your lock, and you're like, what do I do with this? And then just, there you go. Yeah, it's a Bedouin culture. That's your bike lock. Yeah, that's your car alarm. You got to keep that with you. Yeah, turned into an accessory. Huh. Yeah, that's kind of the culture part of what that represents, at least. Of course, yeah. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that. Yes, about tying the camel. Aqilha thumma tawakkal. You got to tie it, and then you place your trust in Allah. Use the same type of wording here that comes from iqal. Cattle and sheep are slaughtered on their left side, so obviously the camel is still upright in the standing position, left foreleg bound. Now the cattle and the sheep are laid down onto the ground, facing the qibla. This is the sunnah method of dhabh for non-camels. Mentioning the name of Allah is obligatory. At the moment the hand begins the act of slaughter. Slaughter, also you say the takbir, Allahu Akbar. Obviously that's what you say when you're spilling blood. That's what they see in Hollywood, at least. Allahu Akbar! Then there's terrible violence that follows. Oh Allah, this is from you and for you. Okay? All jokes aside. All right? No, not in the same way you do with the calf and the cow and the sheep. ووقت ذبح أضحية وهدي نذر أو تطوع ومتعة وقران من بعد أسبق صلاة العيد بالبلد أو قدرها لمن لم يصلي فإن فاتت الصلاة بالزوال ذبح بعده إلى آخر ثاني أيام التشريق ووقت ذبح هدي واجب بفعل محظور من حينه. The time for slaughtering an Uḍḥiyah, a Hajj of vow or voluntary offering, and the Hajj of tamattu and qiran is after the earliest Eid prayer in the town, or its equivalent for one who does not pray. The Uḍḥiyah, right? The Qurbani. This is what most of us are concerned with today. Unless you're making Hajj every year, your Qurbani and Uḍḥiyah, what time can you begin? After the earliest Eid prayer in the town, or its equivalent if you don't pray. So if you don't go, but you know it happened at 7 a.m. and they're done by 7:05, then you start the slaughtering process. If the prayer is missed and the time reaches the zawal, slaughter is done thereafter until the end of the second of the days of Tashriq, if the prayer is missed. So you might miss the prayer, meaning we didn't know. And then we realized, and it's now بالزوال ذبح بعده إلى آخر ثاني أيام التشريق. You can still go after the zawal, and you would make up the prayer the following day. The time to slaughter a hadiyah required due to a prohibited act is from the moment it is committed. As we talked about, when you have to slaughter an animal based on various different infractions of the Hajj, that process, or the rites and rituals that you have to complete, and there's a blood sacrifice, then it happens right away. That's when it becomes obligatory right away. Okay? Distribution of a hadi. Here we go. وَيَتَعَيَّنُ هَدْيٌ بِقَوْلِهِ هَذَا هَدْيٌ أَوْ بِتَقْلِيدِهِ أَوْ إِشْعَارِهِ وَأُضْحِيَةٌ بِهَذِهِ أُضْحِيَةٌ أَوْ لِلَّهِ وَنَحْوِهِ وَلَا يَجُوزُ إِعْطَاءُ الْجَازِرِ أُجْرَتَهُ مِنْهَا وَيَجُوزُ هَدِيَّةً وَصَدَقَةً ولا يباع جلدها ولا شيء منها بل ينتفع به وسن أن يأكل ويهدي ويتصدق أثلاثا وأن يأكل من هديه التطوع ومن أضحيته ولو واجبة ويجوز من المتعة والقران ويجب أن يتصدق بما يقع عليه اسم اللحم ويعتبر تمليك الفقير فلا يكفي إطعامه. The hadi is designated by saying, this is a hadi, or by garlanding it. Garlanding it. Garland is like a thing you put on it, like a garland. It's like a garland, you know, like something you'd put on it to it's like a symbol, like this has been dedicated. Or by blood marking, where you would cut it, and there would be an obvious mark on it that this has now become a hadi, not just any animal in the herd. The Udhiyah is designated by saying, with this Udhiyah, or for Allah, or the like, meaning any phrase that indicates such, that's sufficient for you to designate the animal as an Udhiyah. It is not permitted to give the butcher his wages from it, though it is permitted as a gift or as charity. So we're not utilizing, basically, this is what we're getting at. We're not utilizing the animal as currency. Okay? It's either given as a gift or as an act of charity. It's not meant to be currency. We're trading for a service. Not here. Nothing from it, including its skin, is to be sold. Rather, it is to be used. Again, we're not trying to barter and sell and buy and etc. with this animal. It's recommended to divide it into 3 parts: to eat, to give as a gift, and to give as charity. It's recommended to eat from the voluntary hadi and from one's own udhiyah, even if obligatory. It is also permitted for tamattu and qiran. It is obligatory to give in charity whatever falls under the name meat, and ownership by the poor is required. Feeding them alone does not suffice. So basically here, as I described, we're not utilizing this as a form of payment for slaughter. But if you wanted to give the one who slaughtered, the butcher, a portion, a separate portion as an act of charity or as a gift, this is perfectly fine. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Right? Your actions are done by your intentions here. Nothing from it, including its skin, is to be sold. Selling any part of it is prohibited. The skin or other parts, they may be kept or they may be used, but they cannot be monetized. It's recommended to divide in 3 parts. This is what I alluded to earlier. So the sunnah way of dividing the animal is in thirds. 1 for personal consumption, 1 for gifting, that would be like family and neighbors, etc., and 1 for charity. Charity for those, preferably those that are in need. It's recommended to eat from the voluntary Hady and from one's Uḍḥiyah, even if obligatory. So it's recommended that you eat from that animal yourself, but it's not an obligation that you do so. It's also permitted for tamattu and qiran, eating from the Hady. For these two is also permitted. Right? Recommended for the voluntary Hady from one's own Uḍḥiyah, and permitted for the tamattu and qiran from the animal they slaughter. It's obligatory to give in charity whatever falls under the name meat tier, because we know the animal has various different parts. There's the shahm, there's a lahm, etc., etc., and you have to give away something, some portion, a minimum amount that can be properly called meat must be given charity, even if you give other parts away as well. So what we're saying here is, you don't just give away the skin and you give away the fat and you give away the organs and keep all the meat, but you also have to give some of the meat in charity as well. Because a person might go, I want all the meat, and in order to fulfill this distribution part, I'll just distribute all the parts I don't really want. I'll give you the teeth, I'll give you the... yeah, give you the tongue. You can have the brain too. Some people like that. Brains and eggs. It's a good breakfast to start the day. Get you going up here, right? Just get the mind. You got to consume the brains to turn on the brains. Am I right about that? Is that medical? Is that a scientific thing? It's a peripheral knowledge. Peripheral knowledge, yeah. That's the peripheral, yeah. Yeah. That's that peripheral breakfast. Some people call it second breakfast. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir. Brains and eggs. All right, good stuff. So you got to give away some of the meat, not just the other stuff. Ownership by the poor is required, meaning there must be a transfer here of ownership to the poor person's ownership. It now has to become their property, as opposed to cooking and feeding them. Doesn't fulfill the obligation of transferring ownership. إذا دخل العشر حرم على من يضاحي أو يضاح عنه أخذ شيء من شعره أو ظفره أو بشرته إلى الذبح وسن حلق بعده. This is good stuff. When the 10 begin, it is impermissible for the one offering the Uḍḥiyah or on whose behalf it is offered to take anything from their hair, nails, or skin until the slaughter. It is recommended to shave afterward. And this is a lot of people, they understand this. The 10 days they begin. This refers to the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, beginning at sunset on the last day of Dhul Qa'dah. If you've intended to make a slaughter, it's impermissible for the one offering the Uḍḥiyah or on whose behalf it is offered. So the prohibition applies to the intended sacrificer, the one that's going to do it, whether they are performing the slaughter themselves or appointing another to do it on their behalf. It does not extend to other household members unless they are independently offering a sacrifice for themselves. So if there's multiple animals coming out of one house, they could be a sponsor of one themselves, then that's when this rule applies. But if you, as the head of the household, are the one that's going to sponsor or going to slaughter yourself on behalf of you and your family, this rule applies to you. Everyone else in your household, they're not under this particular sanction here. So you're not permitted to take anything from hair, nails, or skin. This is the madhab. It's impermissible, meaning it's sinful. This is just the madhab here, right? It may be, and it is, other madhabs that they're a little bit more lenient on this issue of trimming nails, cutting hair, etc. It might be something lesser, like makruh, for example, okay? And I mention that in the event that, you notice people aren't adhering to this. And you're like, wait a minute, this is a haram here, what are we doing? We should be aware that there are other opinions out there, and valid opinions should not be looked down upon. Right? So this is a point of debate, no doubt about it. As many of these points are debated within the various different schools. Okay? And this continues until the slaughter. The restriction remains in effect until the animal has been slaughtered. And once the animal's been slaughtered, the prohibition ends immediately. And so if one violates the prohibition, believing that it's haram, then they have to repent. like any other sin. There is, however, no fidyah or other type of compensation due, and the Uḍḥiyah remains valid without any deficiency. So if you violated that under the understanding of it being impermissible, it's not going to render the animal that you want to slaughter invalid. That stays as it is. The only thing that is left to do is to repent from violating this. It's recommended to shave afterward. After the Uḍḥiyah, shaving, we're talking about your hair, not the animal. Shaving your hair is recommended, marking completion and release and reflecting the parallel with the rites of Hajj. As we know, the pilgrim is going to shave their head or shorten their hair, and so shaving here is recommended for even the one that slaughters the animal. The next and last section for this chapter is al-Aqiqah. He says, وَالْعَقِيقَةُ سُنَّةٌ مُؤَكَّدَةٌ فِي حَقِّ الْأَبْ وَهِيَ عَنِ الْغُلَامِ شَاتَانِ متقاربتان سنا وشبها فإن عدم فواحدة وعن الجارية شاة ولا يجزئ بدنة أو بقرة إلا كاملة تذبح عن سابع ولادته ويسمى فيه فإن فات ففي 14 فإن فات ففي 21 ولا تعتبر الأسابيع بعد ذلك. So the Aqiqah is an emphasized recommended act for the father. That's right, dads. It's on you. To perform the Aqiqah at the birth of your child. For a boy, 2 sheep close in age and likeness are offered. If they are not found, then 1 will suffice. فَإِنْ عَدِمَ فَوَاحِدَةٌ. Okay? 2 is what's preferred. If unavailable, 1 is enough. For a girl, 1 sheep is offered. And that's when you say, you love those girls. They'll cost you later. Don't worry. The boys get cheaper as they grow. The girls somehow become more costly. Am I on cloud 9 with that? I have 3 daughters and a son. That's my personal experience. I could be wrong. Just what I've experienced. Okay? Could be the opposite. Depending on how they're raised, perhaps. Okay? For a girl, 1 sheep is offered. A camel or cow does not suffice unless whole. Meaning here, you can't divide an animal for an aqiqah of multiple kids. Your community, you've had there's 7 babies born, and you go, hey, guess what? Let's all do this in 1 shot. We'll do 1 cow together, get it all done with 1 animal. We'll have us a big old whatever, you know. No. You can only do the camel or cow if you're slaughtering the whole animal for the child. It can't be divided over multiple people, is what he's getting at. It does not suffice unless whole. It is slaughtered on the 7th day after birth, on which the child is named. If that is missed, then on the 14th. So we're getting 7 days out. We missed that 7 more days out. If that is missed, then on the 21st day. Okay, so for whatever reason we're being delayed. The weeks after that are not considered. Meaning here, these are recommended times. They're not conditions. So that means if you miss them, it doesn't mean now all of a sudden it's no longer applicable. No, if you miss them, you just do it later without restriction. Meaning you could do it on the 22nd day or the 23rd day or the 20th. There's no preference after that point. It's just still a sunnah that should be done. Okay? It's still something that should be done. It's a sunnah mu'akkadah. So the timing after those 7th, 14th, and 21st, basically the virtue of those days, because this is what was instructed by the Prophet ﷺ, has been lost, but the act can still be fulfilled and very rewardable. He says, وَلَا يُكْسَرُ عَظْمُهَا وَطَبْخُهَا أَفْضَلُ وَيَكُونُ مِنْهُ بِحُلْوٍ وَحُكْمُهَا كَأُضْحِيَةٍ فِيمَا يُجْزِئُ ويستحب ويكره لكن يباع جلد ورأس والسواقط ويتصدق بثمنه وَإِنْ اتَّفَقَ وَقْتُ عَقِيقَةٍ وَأُضْحِيَةٍ أَجْزَأَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا عَنِ الْأُخْرَى. If bone, it says its bones are not to be broken, cooking it is better, and there should be something sweet from it, from what you cook, that is. Its ruling is like the Udhiyah regarding what suffices, what is recommended, and what is disliked. Right? كَأُضْحِيَةٍ فِيمَا يُجْزِئُ وَيُسْتَحَبُّ وَيُكْرَهُ وَيُكْرَهُ لَكِنْ يُبَاعُ جِلْدٌ. So then there's some exceptions here, except that its skin, head, and offal may be sold, and its price given in charity. If the time of an Aqiqah and an Uḍḥiyah coincide, one suffices for the other. So here notice, no breaking the bones. It's recommended. Taking a hopeful symbol of the child's soundness and well-being. This is tafa'ul. Tafa'ul means not omen, but optimism. It's not a superstition, it's just being optimistic. And the Prophet ﷺ used to love optimism. Optimism in his words, in acts, and interpreting things. This is a good sign. Not as a superstitious thing, like there's some power controlling the universe if I see something. No, it's just being optimistic. Okay? Sunny day, clear skies, it's going to be a good day. Not because the clear day and the sun have control and power over the circumstances and outcomes of your day, but you're just being optimistic. You see something that looks good, or you do something like this, good, then that's essentially what we're looking at here. No funny business involved, okay? Having the tafa'ul is not a shirky thing, right? Not at all. Cook, and that gets us to the next point that he mentions. Cooking is preferred over distributing it raw, and including something sweet reflects an optimistic supplication for good character. That you want to serve it with something sweet. When you cook the food, the Udhiyah, then you give a sweet with it, because you're hoping it's tafa'ulan, like bi hulwi hayatihi, that you want him to have a sweet life. You want him to have a good character, etc. And so that's another one of those optimistic scenarios. In most legal aspects, valid animals, defects, and general etiquette, the Aqiqah follows the same rules at the Udhiyah. Of course, we talked about the things that can be sold, and then you give their value in charity, basically. And if the Aqiqah and the Udhiyah fall on the same day, a single slaughter suffices for both. Right? If there's an Aqiqah due during that time period, and there's also an Udhiyah due during that time period, this is when you can bring them together, one counting for the other. One will take the place of the other. Yeah. Yes. That counts for both. One animal. Yeah. To slaughter the animal for the Udhiyah, and to slaughter it for the Aqiqah. Yeah. Yeah, you have the intention to slaughter one animal to suffice for both of these things. You get the reward for both. Yes. And for the Udhiyah. Yeah. Is that what you're saying? You do one animal for two occasions at one time. It's the intention of two occasions with one animal. Yeah. Mm. Sure. You can do it for, there's multiple. Even during the Hajj, we talked about multiple things. For example, 2 ركعتين قبل الإحرام. ركعتين قبل الإحرام. If you صليت الظهر يجزئ. الظهر يجزئ. وعن الجنابة أفضل. Yeah. The intention of الاغتسال has to be رفع الحدث الأكبر. Yeah, but it's at the same time والوقت المناسب لصلاة الجمعة or للجمعة. Yeah. Yeah, so multiple things like that. We do need to compile the list. We do need to compile the list. And Imam al-Ba'li, he says, similar to how one ghusl can suffice for Jum'ah and Eid. Eid, that happens on Jum'ah. Yeah, you take a ghusl for Eid and you take one for Jum'ah. But what if the Eid is on Jum'ah prayer? Which we've had. One ghusl suffices for both. An al-janaba. Yeah. 3 moments. But there's a difference in the niyyah when it comes to the ghusl janaba, right? The ghusl janaba has to be, you're removing the hadath al-akbar. Yeah. And then the moment that you're there, it's obviously Jummah prayer, it could be Eid prayer, and it will suffice for all those occasions. And so you don't have to take 2. Yeah. In order to get the reward of both opportunities, right? But the nature of the ghusl on Jum'ah, on al-janaba, elevates the deed itself. So ghusl on al-janaba is a ghusl wājib, right? And the most beloved deeds are al-wājibāt. So here, the ghusl yawm al-jum'ah is masnoon. It's a recommendation, unless it's on janaba. Okay? So the opportunity it gives you to elevate that Friday ghusl in its reward, because not only is it Friday, but it's now a wajib. One act fulfilling 2. Yes, it's there, one inside the other. Like what exactly? Oh, we're just doing theory. Two of the same acts, 2 identical acts. No, I'm sorry. One act, one identical act for 2 things.